genuine growth and to realize like some level of humility, like would do so many politicians so good. And so many partisans, maybe that's the word I'll use, not just politicians, but people so sure that their policy prescription, like we just need this policy or whatever. Like humility is constructive, and it doesn't have to mean like the realization that you're wrong doesn't mean you have to give up. There's someone in my life who, when she's wrong, she very much sort of goes through a phase of like, I'm wrong about everything, right? And you probably know those people too.
I was that person. That my first big thing, like learning about economics and like the 20th century and how certain economic policies led to like these kind of deaths and stuff. I'm like, whoa, like I was wrong on that, and that was a huge wrong.
Sure.
So then I went back and looked at everything else. But nowadays it's like, well, I might be wrong on this thing. I'm pretty confident on this thing. Like I won't have to reevaluate my entire life.
Right. It's not the end of the world when you're wrong, especially if you're willing to grow. Then you're still ahead of the curve. It might feel like, oh, well, I was in the wrong, and so the majority were right, and therefore maybe I'm not as capable, or maybe I don't have the insight I thought I did. But don't let yourself think that, because then you'll stop growing. Like you have to grow. Yeah,
with the humility, and with like if you're proven wrong, you also have to have like some sympathy and like empathy for yourself, and like realize like you're human. Like we're all born. We have our instincts, but like we weren't given a to-do list and like or like how to live life, and like so you have to be like easy on yourself too, and like realize.
Well, and the realization that the mistakes too that you've made like are incredibly formative experiences. I know of no better teacher than failure. I really can't think of anything. Like every lesson that's really resonated with me, I've had to learn the hard way.
So I teach gymnastics, and I was actually did a private lesson yesterday with this girl, and I told her, I'm like, I think I've learned more from my failures than my successes. Like, because the success, you do it right, you don't really remember that, but the failure like sits with you for a minute or so. Like at least with gymnastics, like you realize like, oh, this went wrong in that.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like the more failures I make, sometimes it like makes me happy, because like,
big time.
I'm like, great.
Okay.
I'm one step closer towards the truth, and two, it's just, I don't know, like I learned so much more from that. So
you mentioned empathy, and having empathy for the people that don't see the world the way
you
do too is a key component. So empathy for yourself and for others that you are sure are wrong and are fervently and passionately arguing, without any logic or whatever, like having some empathy for them because they're on that journey too.
Exactly.
Totally.
And you just like, with certain people, like, especially as I get out more and like stop just reading books and I'm on the internet, the more I interact with people, it's like, okay, I can see why they came to this conclusion, because say they grew up on like the south side of Chicago or like a poor, bad neighborhood. It's like, okay, I understand why you think this way. And it's like, you might be wrong, or maybe I'm wrong, but I think you're wrong.
Right.
But I also understand why you came to that conclusion, and like I'm not going to try to like destroy you with facts and try to change your mind. It's like you just have
and you can still think they're wrong too. Like I think a lot of today's culture, I think we give a lot of that weight. Like we say experience matters, it totally does, but then that's the end of the conversation sometimes. Like, well, they had this experience, or like people are who they are because of their experiences and the different conditions and socioeconomic factors and stuff. But that's doing those folks a disservice, everyone a disservice, if we sort of end the debate there and say, well, I see the world this way because of this, therefore I must be right. Or this has credence, or that's enough. There's a huge trend in American culture toward that, and that's really poisonous, because that's a way to limit growth.
Right.
Totally.
You need the experience, but then you also need the objectivity and to see just not from your soul to eye perspective.
Right.
Like, see it from a bigger picture too. But
when some of that validation can become this bubble.
And
then suddenly everyone's living in this little bubble because of their experiences or whatever.
Yeah.
Random aside, I feel the same way you do about mistakes too. I do a lot of like little home projects and stuff, which I really love to do, like self-taught, don't know what I'm doing. And everything always fails the first time. And I've gotten to the point where I don't care any longer. Like I've learned something super valuable, and I can remember being frustrated in time, like, but the older you get, I'm getting pretty old, RJ. The older you get, the more you realize like time will always be there, or won't. You can't control that time element.
Right.
So if you've wasted time on something, like the lesson that resonates was worth that time. It totally was. There is this is totally an aside. There's a show of people trying to live in the wilderness called Alone. Have you heard of this at all? It's like a contest.
Is it on
it's dropped off an island? I think probably. Anyway, the people that always win this show, I've watched like half a season or something like that, but I watched the end of one. The dude who wins is the dude who didn't get frustrated, right? Like he didn't get down on himself for the mistakes. Everyone makes all these mistakes. I've seen it like twice now, because I knew who won this one season, and this other season I don't watch a ton of TV. I do watch this. But it's the people, like you can see it in their total behaviors, like attitude, like matters. Like, it totally matters. And so if you can get to that point where mistakes aren't a problem or like a personal failure, but a growth opportunity, you will be able to survive in the wilderness for 180 days with a candle or whatever they go out there with.
If you
You're
get
unstoppable.
if you get frustrated and you stop, like, well, of course you're gonna stop growing. Like you just stopped. Like, you're gonna be stuck where you're at. Like with the girls in gymnastics, like the ones who have that mindset, and I always try to get it in all their mindsets. But the ones that like, there's one girl I remember, she was still doing what we were telling her to do, but she was also crying.
Yes.
But I'm like, no, like you're doing an amazing job. Like that mindset, like what you're doing, like yes, you're crying and you're frustrated, but you're still trying. Like that's what I would rather see than you doing like a double backflip, like
being good at it or not natural at it or
exactly
whatever, right?
Like that mindset will take you much farther than anything.
Growth mindset, I think that's what they call that.
And that's what I try to have, because I don't want to be stuck, and like I want to grow and learn and find the truth. And
it's hard,
and that's why like I started this. Like I was trying to get this set up all perfect, and like if I get these microphones and this, I gotta work after that. I'm like, you know what, like no, just get the questions, I'll come here, we'll set it up. It's not gonna go perfect, it's my first time, so but I'm just gonna learn as I go. And eventually maybe it'll be like Joe Rogan. It'll be all fancy and
absolutely.
Even if just 100 people watch.
Yeah, heck
10,
yeah.
I don't care. Like, I'm doing this kind of more so for me. So.
When I recorded these, like when I first started teaching U.S. history, it was actually face-to-face, but I still wanted to capture lectures. I wanted to do a flipped classroom. So I wanted students to like watch lectures outside of class and then come to class back in Texas. So I recorded these lectures like way back in like 2014. Actually, spent all summer working on the project. Like they're like really low quality, but like it found an audience. It's not crazy, but it's like 250,000 views or something like that in these old YouTube videos. Partly it's just because the channel's been around so long or whatever.
Oh yeah, but still.
But like it was just a guy in Texas with like this little cheap little microphone, like figuring out how to record stuff. And I got all these people start commenting on these videos like, you saved me in AP US history, like it found an audience beyond me, which is the power, of the internet. Totally. So if 100 people watch it, that's 100 lives, you might have changed to some extent or listened. So,
and that's what I want to do. But, so finally, any books you recommend or people you'd recommend listening to like learn more about this? Or
I think the thing, rather than any specific recommendations, I don't do nearly as much reading as I should offline. I buy books and they just sit on the shelf. One day I'll read them. But you got to listen to the people you disagree with, like fully. Like even if like your head is screaming that they're totally wrong, you got to listen to the full point. So if you seek out different opinions, like eventually you're going to find someone who is right and you are wrong. And like that experience, it's the same theme we've been talking about this whole time. Like seek out contrarian opinions. Seek out someone who thinks the opposite of you on a specific topic, see what they believe about others, try to talk to them if you can. I think of Twitter, just how useful Twitter is for me for just following different people and just seeing how they think. You get to see you get to hear perspectives you would not hear on the television screen, right? Or even potentially in books, like the bestsellers list is going to have a specific, in the same way that CNN or Fox News is sort of one perspective, the New York Times bestsellers is probably generally an acceptable view within this political framework. Specifically, that might not expand your point of view at all. So seek out contrarians would be sort of my big piece of advice. If something is shocking or surprising to your perspective, listen. Right. And then see where that takes you.
I think that's a good recommendation, just because for two reasons. Like I remember Nietzsche said some quote, I don't know exactly what it is, but like there's truth, there's love and truth, or truth and chaos, but there's also chaos and truth. So it's like they might not have everything right, but there might be like a little bit of like a golden nugget in what they're saying.
Totally.
You might like see it a different way. But even if there's not, if they're wrong, you should listen to them, because it's also going to like help your arguments and like help better you and understand your own point of view. So.
And understand them better too. Because like you said earlier, something about like when you actually get to know someone or hear their perspective, you can maybe understand like where they're coming from, or some nuance to their argument that's not evident when they're all fired up and yelling about something. So listening to the whole point and asking questions and following up helps you understand their perspective better. Whether it means that you like empathize more, or whether you feel like they're closer to the truth or not, it's almost irrelevant. At least you understand them fully. And then you're actually having a policy or a philosophical debate. You're not having a debate about semantics or whether that part of it was true or not. Right? Like that doesn't matter. It's like, why are they arguing what they're arguing, and why did they think that, and giving them the space to represent their own. Because if people have that opportunity, that's how we do get closer to the truth, even if we're super divided. Is if we can be heard fully, people just want to be heard, right?
I think that's a huge thing. Is people just want like to be acknowledged.
And then the full idea is in public, right? Then they haven't been misunderstood.
Yeah.
Then it's up for debate. Then government can do something about it or not, right? Then the best ideas sort of move forward because we understand them fully.
Yeah. Dang. Well,
that's fun.
That's all I got. So I'd love to do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Interview me in 2 years and see if I say the exact same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'll probably come back and say the opposite. Democracy's great. What did I say?
Exactly. Well, thank you, Jordan.
You're welcome,
Mr. O'Connell.
You're welcome. That's cool.